is in crisis. And people are looking for hope and answers. Thai PBS World is there with you with the best minds of the day. Join us on Thai PBS World tonight, every weekdays at 7 p.m. Thai PBS World, we bring Thailand to the world.
สวัสดีค่ะ Very good evening and welcome to our 7 o'clock news Thai PBS World tonight. I am Natha Gomunwadin.
And good evening, I'm Thep Chai Yong. Anti-government protesters have threatened to intensify their activities in the coming weeks following the decision by the parliament to delay the vote on the 6th bill seeking to amend the constitution. And they have scheduled another major rally for October the 14th. And today, Prime Minister Prayut said the government would not do anything to stop them. But once again, he warned the protesters to respect the law. Prime Minister Prayut admitted that the government might appear to be feeble in dealing with the student-led protests. He said the government chose to be careful in not confronting the protesters who have been calling for political changes and a reform of the monarchy. We do not want to play into their hands, he said, suggesting that the protesters have been trying to be provocative.
And when asked if he was feeling under pressure, the Prime Minister said nothing would stop him from working for the country and the people. No, I'm not giving up, he said. Prime Minister Prayut has been the main target of the month-long protest. And he also came under fierce attack by opposition party MPs during the parliamentary debate on constitutional amendments last week.
All right, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I'm sure that we are all too familiar with this saying, but in Thailand's current political context, the saying has a far-reaching meaning. คุณหญิงพจมานดามพงศ์ the former wife of ex-Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, was seen being granted a rare audience with His Majesty the King last week. Though she was there in her capacity as Vice Chairwoman of Thaicom Foundation to donate a mobile medical unit. The event is believed to have sent a very powerful political message. The next morning, Pheu Thai, the main opposition party, saw a mass resignation of its key figures, including its leader Sompong Amarnviwatt and key strategist Kun Ying Sudarat Keyurapan. Though publicly, Pojamarn has been careful in distancing herself from the party's affairs, it's no secret that she still wields a lot of clout in the biggest opposition party. And from his self-exile overseas, former Prime Minister Thaksin is also believed to have been pulling strings from behind as far as Pheu Thai party is concerned. Speculation has been rife that Thaksin and Pojamarn were increasingly alarmed by how Pheu Thai party, under the present leadership, was being seen as leaning more and more toward the agenda of political parties and activist groups which make a hostile stand toward the monarchy.
การห้ามแก้ไขเพิ่มเติมรัฐธรรมนูญในหมวด 1 บททั่วไปและหมวด 2 พระมหากษัตริย์
Gaokrai or Move Forward Party, a reincarnation of the now defunct Future Forward Party, has been advocating a constitutional amendment that would challenge the sanctity of one of the country's most revered institutions. The party has also closely allied itself with student activists campaigning for political changes. The overwhelming presence of members of the Red Shirt movement at the anti-government rally at Sanam Luang on September the 19th reinforced the belief that the party and, by extension, Thaksin, was working in cahoots with anti-monarchist activists. The Sanam Luang saw protesters reiterate their demand for a sweeping reform of the monarchy. The Red Shirt movement was a political creation designed specifically to support Thaksin's return to power. It was largely responsible for the carnage caused by the violent street protests in 2010. So the re-emergence of Pojamarn at this juncture is being interpreted as a strong signal that she and Thaksin want to see Pheu Thai step back from the brink. There has been even speculation that Pojamarn will personally step in to get the Pheu Thai party house in order. And what is certain is that a new leadership of Pheu Thai party, which will be more compromising with the powers that be, will emerge. Some old faces are expected to make it back, but most likely with a new political attitude.
It may be still too early to predict a possibility of Pheu Thai crossing the aisle and teaming up with Palang Pracharat, the core party of the Prayut coalition. But that has already become a topic of intense speculation in social media outlets, which do not rule out the possibility of a national unity government. However, Chusak Sirinin, the acting party leader, today dismissed the speculation. He said he did not see the possibility of Pheu Thai party joining the coalition. On speculation about Pojamarn's role in Pheu Thai party, Chusak said there was no sign that she would want to get involved in the party's affairs. Chusak claimed the mass resignation of the Pheu Thai leadership was something that had been planned as part of the effort to revitalize the party. The caretaker executive committee of the party met today and decided to schedule a general assembly for this Thursday to elect a new leadership. It will be clear what direction the party will take once we see the lineup of its new leadership.
Of course, the talks about a national unity government is nothing new. It has been around for quite some time. So what does the Prime Minister, who should have the ultimate say on the future of the country's politics, have to say about this? When he was asked about the speculation today, he quickly dismissed it as a rumor. So that means that he doesn't really giving any serious thought about this idea of having a national unity government. Right?
Yes.
And,
and that is also pressure demand by the protesters as well, that they don't want to see national unity government.
That's one thing that the both sides agree on, not having a national unity government. And I'm sure that many people were caught off guard by the sudden re-emergence of Kun Ying Pojamarn Damapong. And of course, Kun Ying Pojamarn so far hasn't said anything about her sudden reappearance. And she's likely to remain silent on this issue and leave others to speculate. And that is exactly the kind of character she has always been, a lady of few words, but lots of actions, mostly behind the scenes. Even during her days as Thailand's so-called First Lady, Pojamarn tried to keep a very low profile. She was seldom seen in public with the then Prime Minister Thaksin, but she was known to be playing behind-the-scene role on behalf of her husband. Many crucial decisions were said to be made by Thaksin only after she had given her blessing.
She even took the troubles of meeting personally with some media figures in order to win them over to her husband's side. Thaksin at the time made no secret of his disdain for social media outlets, critical of him and his government. One of his tactics, and a rather effective one too, was to co-opt the media, either through friendly persuasion or by playing hardball. Pojamarn, who is 65, is known to have initiated the move that eventually led Thaksin, then leader of the Thai Rak Thai party, and de facto boss of the telecommunication giant Shin Corporation, to take over ITV, Thailand's first independent broadcaster, in the year 2000. Close friends of Pojamarn described her as a tough and a determined woman. That means if she has her eyes on something, she will make sure that she will get what she wants.
All right, the main opposition party, Pheu Thai, is not only revamping its leadership, but is also adopting a new logo. So this is what the new party logo looks like. The new one is on the right. At first look, it might not look much different from the present one, but a closer look, however, would find a difference. The sharp pointed letters for the present logo are replaced with round-shaped letters. Now the letters have what is called hua or head in Thai. You can say that the letters in the present logo are headless and not so auspicious appearance for many superstitious Thais. And now we have a head, said to Saksirinin, the acting party leader, half jokingly when asked to comment on the difference. So this is quite interesting, Kunatha, that with the new leadership comes a new logo for the biggest opposition party.
Yeah, that's quite brand new change, sea change, so suddenly for Pheu Thai party. And Kun Thepchai, today is the first day of a meeting of COVID-19 situation administration after about a month without any meeting or press conference. And today, the spokesperson for COVID-19 or CCSA, Dr. Tubisin, told the result that it's to have special tourist visa to allow more activity to stimulate economy, especially in tourism industry. The Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration today, chaired by Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, approved the extension of emergency decree through 31st of October, according to the Deputy Prime Minister Visanu Kriyangam. The panel also approved special tourist visas for foreign tourists starting next month. Tourism and Sports Minister Pipat Ratchakit Prakan said the 1 month extension to the state of emergency would be the 6th since the initial order in March. The measure was set to end on Wednesday. And for those who will be allowed to apply, special tourist visa are classified into 6 groups. The 6 groups of foreigners who will be able to enter Thailand in October. The first one are foreign athletes who will participate in the Princess Mahachakri Sirinthorn Cup Tour of Thailand 2020 between October the 6th and 16th in 2020. Over 340 Thai Airways crew working on repatriation flight from the US. Non-immigrant visa holders, they must provide a 6-month bank statement with no less than 500,000 Thai baht in the account. Special tourist visa STV holders for long stays in Thailand. EPIC card holders, around 100,000 business people who passed health screening in 18 listed countries. A non-Thai who must stay in Thailand for at least 60 days and can show a 6-month bank statement with a balance of no less than 500,000 baht. The limited number of visas to foreign visitors is aimed at testing the nation's readiness for a wider tourism reopening in the coming months as part of its effort to boost the ailing sector. The country is trying to strike a balance between minimizing risk of infection and reopening for foreigners who could help rescue its economy. Foreigners who wish to visit the country will need to seek a special visa, get tested for COVID-19 before departure, and agree to more tests and a quarantine upon arrival. Also, Thailand's resort island of Phuket is preparing to reopen to long-stay foreign tourists on October the 1st. Like many other top tourist destinations worldwide, Phuket has been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, which saw many hotels and tourism-related business closed or partially closed due to the disappearance of foreign tourists, following lockdown measures imposed in many countries, including Thailand. President of the Southern Hotel Association told the Thai PBS that many hotel staff and workers in tourism-related business in Phuket have been permanently or temporarily laid off. He suggested that the government try to promote domestic tourism by encouraging Thai people to travel or by holding activities such as seminars in hotels during weekdays, not just at weekends, so that they can generate income to keep their staff on the payroll. Several entertainment venues in Patong Beach area, which was described as never sleeping before the COVID-19 pandemic, have reopened, especially on Fridays and weekends, But it appears that there are more workers than tourists on the once famous strip of bars. So that would be reopening of Phuket on the 1st of October.
Okay, so let's hope that all these new measures will help revitalize the badly hit tourism industry.
Yes. And on the world spotlight this week, Khun Thepchai must be on US presidential debate.
It's two more days away, two days away now.
And the first round will be on the 30th of September, Thailand time, or 29th of September, the US time. So what will be happening, Kunat?
Well, we'll give you an overview of what the presidential debates are all about. So just like what you said, the first presidential debate will take place tomorrow US local time, but it will be on Wednesday local time in Thailand, and this will be the first presidential debate between President Trump and Joe Biden. And the first debate will be held at Cleveland in the state of Ohio, which will start around 9 p.m. Eastern time in the US. But for this year, there are 3 presidential debates. The first one in Cleveland, Ohio, and the other 2 in October will be in Florida as well as Tennessee. And there will also be another debate between the Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris will go head-to-head on the 7th of October in Salt Lake City in Utah. What is interesting, though, is that in Ohio and Florida are currently the battleground states. So this is probably why the debates are taking place over there.
So what will be the format of the first debate?
The format of the first debate here, there will be around 6 topics, 15 minutes each. And the topics that will be discussed during the presidential debates, of course, there will be about the coronavirus pandemic, the racial protests and violence in cities in regards to the Black Lives Matter, as well as the economy, election integrity, the Supreme Court, as well as the previous records of President Trump and Joe Biden here. Interestingly, the COVID-19 is definitely one of the hottest topics that will be discussed during the debate, because during the past couple of months, we've been seeing how President Trump has responded to the pandemic and widely criticized for the way he downplayed the situation. But on the other side of it, he said he gave themselves an A+ for the way they handled it. As well as the election integrity, we've been hearing about the mail-in voting, because this year, because of the pandemic, people will be voting by mail a lot more. So President Trump has been criticizing it because they believe that mail-in voting would lead to election fraud. So we will be seeing or listening to how he's going to defend himself in this situation. But we can also not forget the tax issue that just came out recently, because we will see how President Trump has to defend himself if he does get that question.
Yeah, timing is quite crucial. That New York Times will suddenly reveal about his tax record in the past 2 decades. So as of now, who is leading in the poll?
Currently is Joe Biden in the national polls, that we can see that he is leading in many of the states, particularly in battleground states such as Arizona, Florida, Michigan, Minnesota. It's more on the Democrats, but there are 2 states that President Trump is leading at the moment, is Texas and Georgia. But things can always change, because we've seen back in 2016 where the polling did not reflect the final result here. And just a little reminder for those who are slightly unaware of the election system in the United States, the winner of the elections is not determined by popular vote, but it is the electoral vote. So each state has their own set of electors. Some might have only 3 electors, some might have more than 10. Because like California has up to 55 electors, Florida has up to 29. And the magic number to win the elections is 270 out of 538 in total. So either President Trump or Joe Biden has to get 270 to win the elections. And most of the states use the winner takes all system. So it's quite different to what we have in Thailand or in other countries that are based on the number of votes only. But for the US, it's the winner takes all. So if President Trump wins 51% of the popular votes in Florida, for example, Florida has around 29 electors. If Trump gets 51%, that means Trump already wins that state. So it doesn't really matter if that's a landslide victory or it's just by a few percentage points, but that will definitely make a difference here. But that means just because Biden is winning in the polls right now doesn't mean he will win in the electoral votes.
All right, so
Yeah.
a bit complicated, I mean, the way that you elect leaders in the US. But don't forget the fact that the election night this year will be different from the previous election nights because we may not know the result, the official result. That means that we won't know who is going to win that night because of the issue with the mail-in vote. Right?
Definitely, because some of the experts have been saying that the mail-in voting is unprecedented this year because of the amount of mail-in votings that we'll have this year. So they might see that if there are still some in-person voting, it might be a little bit unreliable. And they have also they also estimated that people who support the Republicans might be doing more in-person voting compared to Democrats who might prefer to do mail-in voting. And that is probably why President Trump has been saying that mail-in voting leads to voter fraud.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the way he showed his gesture even before election night. So we will see what's the result will be coming out. And what about other development of other stories, Kunat?
And just so you know, these are the stories we've also been following.
Thailand recorded 22 new cases of COVID-19 today. 16 of them are Thai soldiers who returned from South Sudan, while the other returnees came back from Pakistan, India, and the Philippines. All of them are now under state quarantine. The new cases raised the total number of infections to 3,545, with 2 new recoveries and no new fatalities. At the same time, the CCSA also decided to extend the emergency decree until the end of October. The CCSA has decided to allow conditional entry to Thailand by 6 groups of foreigners, including long-staying foreign tourists, businessmen with non-immigration visas, holders of APEC cards, and those who want to stay in Thailand for at least 60 days. Those who intend to stay for at least 60 days must comply with a set of requirements, including a bank account dating back 6 months and a cash deposit of at least 500,000 baht. They will have the right to extend their stay for another 30 days. Phuket is preparing to reopen to long-stay foreign tourists on October 1st, and one of the areas being improved is road safety. Provincial officials in charge of traffic management have been fixing more than 200 accident black spots around the island, as well as installing speed bumps, warning signs, and light-reflecting road signs. Phuket has the second highest road accident rate nationally after Bangkok, especially among foreign tourists who are unfamiliar with the roads and traffic signs. Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha revealed that the new finance minister will be announced next week after Priti Dao-chai suddenly resigned from the portfolio after less than a month in office. Previously, there were speculations that outgoing Finance Permanent Secretary Prasong Puntanet could be the new finance minister. Others who were rumored to fill up the position were former Transport Minister Akom Term Pithiyaphaisit and Krairit Uchukanunchai. The Prime Minister has debunked such rumors.
And when talking about the youth movement in Thailand, we see a series of university students and high school students coming out and voice their demand, especially high school students. They really want to see change or reform in education system. And Reuters has interviewed some of the protesters to see what's in their mind.
Wearing white ribbons, publicly hacking off their hair, and making Hunger Games salutes. Thailand's high school students are doing their best to shake up the country's rigid education system. As university students stage weeks of high-profile campus protests for democracy, their younger brethren are advancing their own rebellion to Thailand's establishment. A 17-year-old student told Reuters that there's a viral saying that the first dictatorship is cool. They are trying to instill in them that they are only the little people in an authoritarian society. This means that a lot of their rights have been violated. The movement sweeping through Thai high schools has been dubbed Bad Student by its leader. Its namesake is a book written by the university student activist Netiwit Chotipat Paisan about his experiences in high school titled A Bad Student in an Excellent Education System. As well as supporting the broader aims of the anti-government protests, the high school movement is targeted in gaining self-expression for students via the abolition of rules they deem as archaic. Traditionalism runs through Thailand's education system. The royal anthem is played at morning assemblies. Uniform and deportment rules are strict, and students are expected to be unquestioning of authority. Critics say the school system is aimed at compliance more than education. Global scores compiled by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, for 2018 show Thailand far behind top performer Singapore and also lacking neighboring Malaysia in reading, maths, and science. Still, conservatives were furious last month when some students wore white ribbons and raised three-finger Hunger Games salutes during the morning anthem recital to support the pro-democracy movement. The salute has been a symbol of calls for democracy since Prime Minister Prayut first took power in 2014 coup. The white ribbons represent the purity of the students. Education Minister Nattapon Thipsuwan earlier this year bowed to demands by students to relax the rules that prescribe specific hair length and styles for male and female students. But Nattapon said more discussion was needed on calls to abolish uniforms and other major changes. He doesn't think the students are his opponents. He feels that by listening to them, he is giving them an opportunity to voice their concerns safely. 15-year-old Benjamapon Nivas became one of the first faces of the Bad Student movement when she sat in public places with a sign around her neck inviting passerby to cut her hair as symbolic punishment for infringing the haircut rule. She's now set her sights on further reform. She told Reuters that the government should revoke all the outdated rules, not just that one. Those rules shouldn't exist in first place. It violates their human rights.
In coping with COVID-19, today, Center of COVID-19 Situation Administration had a meeting and they have some relaxing measure to welcome more foreign visitors to Thailand. And what will be the effect on COVID-19 situation in Thailand? Right now, we have Dr. Thanarak Phalitpat, Deputy Director General of Disease Control Department joining us live. สวัสดีค่ะ Good evening คุณหมอธนรักษ์
สวัสดีครับ
Thank you for joining us again. Dr. Thanarak, I hate to say this, but by having you back on our program is only a reminder that we are not yet out of the woods. No, but things have been improving. But let's start with some good news, Dr. Thanarak. Are we still on the right track in dealing with the pandemic?
We are doing great. If we look at the situation in the countries, since May 25th, we did not have a local transmission case reported until September 3rd. And that September 3rd was only one sporadic case. We are now trying to investigate the incidents. We may identify a few more cases, but it has not been yet confirmed. So far, I think we are in a very good situation. situation in the countries look very good. Situation around the countries may not look that good, but up until today, we start to see more and more risk of importing patients or confirmed case from other countries. So that is something that we have to be very careful about and try to look at the situation and adjust our strategies accordingly.
I believe that the country you mentioned must be Myanmar, our neighboring countries. And during the CCSA press conference today, Dr. Tuvisin mentioned that we have 10 provinces connected with the Myanmar side. So what should be the strict measure in order to contain infection that may come from Myanmar?
The Myanmar, if we have a case from Myanmar, generally it will be coming from the illegal migrant workers or illegal laborers who come into the countries. I think what we should do is take instead of relying ourselves upon the policemen or the soldiers who patrol the borders, I think everybody should join hand in hand in trying to solve this problem. The private companies or the private sectors also have the roles to play. I mean, if they did not really accept any illegal migrant workers to their companies or to their factories, I think that will reduce a lot of demand because generally the illegal migrant worker from Myanmar is not the same as the Thai laborers who can come in and shopping for the workplace. Usually they know where they need to go, and then when they know exactly where what factory is now looking for the laborers. So if there is a less in demand from the private sectors, then I believe that there will be less and less Myanmar migrant workers who like to come into the countries. And if everybody's from the factories into to anybody who work as a drivers or as anybody who take the Myanmar laborers into the countries, stop doing that as well. I think that will reduce quite a lot of things. And the migrant health volunteers is also one of the component of the health system that we design in order for us to help detect abnormalities of the situation in the migrant workers. So at the moment, if everybody's work together, health sectors, the police sectors, the government sectors, private sectors, and also the American health volunteers, then I think everything should be fine. But it needs the whole government and whole society approach in order to slow down or to solve the problem.
There have been suggestions that Thailand may want to consider sending medical personnel or medical facilities to help our friends in Myanmar to cope with the pandemics. Do you think that is a possibility?
That is actually the strategy everybody considers, but that's really depending on the government talking between the Thai government and the Myanmar government. The best ways to solve the issue is to stop the epidemic at its source. So if there is any outbreak in Myanmar, the easiest ways for Thai actually, instead of just to prevent it in Thailand, is better if we can help Myanmar solve their problem as well. So if Myanmar can control the situation, then there will be no risk or less risk in Thai side. So the ideas of helping Myanmar in any ways that we can is one of the strategies that we consider.
And what about the extension or granting special tourist visa to Thailand? Dr. Thanarak, do you see that it's the right timing to have more foreign visitors? And what should the local do more in order to cope with the COVID-19 pandemic?
Okay. We all know that about 15% of our GDP is with the tourist industry. So the decision of CCSA to open up or to try to encourage the tourism by encourage the travel into the countries, but still with a very safe approach. I would say that any tourist who come in need to have 14 days quarantine. That is the safest approach we can do. And in trying to encourage or trying to stimulate the tourist industry at this time, I think is the right things to do. With starting from the lowest risk approach, then probably if it's work, we may consider other strategies. Again, the other strategy is also a safe one, but we may need to do it in order to stimulate or to encourage the tourists from other countries to travel to Thailand.
I see. The World Health Organization is now working with about 170 countries on this project called COVAX to develop and distribute vaccine and the anti-COVID-19 vaccine to be sort of a common drug to be distributed to people around the world. Is Thailand part of this effort?
Yes. Actually, the Thai government, the Ministry of Public Health, is trying everything. If we follow the news, the Minister of Public Health, Kun Anutin, is work very hard on this. We have a meeting with several countries who is the front runners. We approach several companies. The National Vaccine Institute also having negotiation and discussion with several vaccine companies. So we are taking several approach. COVAX is also one of the approach we are doing. We approach the AstraZeneca, the front runners who has working on the Oxford vaccine, so that we can have the technology transfer. If that is the case, then we probably be able to manufacture the vaccine in our countries. We are trying to approach other company as well in order to have the vaccine refuel or manufacture in the countries.
I see. Now, with this kind of international efforts, how optimistic are you in seeing a COVID-19 vaccine available in the very near future?
What we know is that by the end of this year, several companies are very positive that they are going to get the result of the vaccine. But we have to understand that the phase 3 vaccine has just started a few months ago. So if by this year we get the result of the vaccine, it means that it should be what we call the just 6-month effectiveness result. What we know so far is that the US FDA has announced that if any vaccine has about 50% effectiveness in 6 months, they are going to approve those vaccines. That's also said that the vaccine has to be safe. So in the end, well, they are going to approve the vaccine, but in the end we have to wait and see how long the vaccine has a protection for the COVID-19. What we would like to see is the effectiveness at 1 year, not just 6 months. Let's say that if at 1 year the effectiveness of the vaccine is 50%, then we can plan on what we should do next. The times of the period of the vaccine effectiveness is to also tell us how often we need to vaccinate the population. So let's say if the result of the first of the vaccine said that Well, at 6 months, we have about 70% effectiveness. And at 1 year, if we have about 50% effectiveness, we know that at 1 year, we probably have to revaccinate anybody who has been vaccinated before because of the decline in the immunities. So those kind of results we need to take into our consideration on what we should do with the vaccine that will be available very soon.
And Dr. Thanarak, in terms of figures from COVID-19 is quite alarming because as of now, the total number of infection around the world is 33 million. And the number of death case is more than 1 million already. In your view, how alarming this is? And in Thailand, we talk a lot about probably second wave or third wave. What's your take?
Okay. I believe that the number of both cases and death that report in the news today or in the media today is underreport. As we all know, so for example, one of the studies from the U.S. that's doing the testing of how many people get infected, we know that a lot of people was not reported into the system. Some state the underreport is more than 10 times. So the numbers of the new cases is rising very rapidly, and that is not surprising for the emerging infection. We know that the epidemic will spread very rapidly. It can reach about 50% of the population within 1 or 2 years. So if we are not doing anything to slow down the epidemics, we can expect that there can be more than 100 million people around the world get infected this year. And as I mentioned, 30 million is a lot underreport. And if we say that the numbers that is reporting to the system is 3 times less, it means that probably we should have more than 100 million people get infected up to today. Also, the number of deaths is underreporting.
Yes.
But that is not surprising for the emerging infection. I hope that every country will work their best in order to control and slow down the epidemics. And now about the second wave, I would say this: there has been a lot of countries that has faced the second wave in Europe, in United Kingdom, in Spain, France. Those has now faced the second wave, and the second wave is larger than the problem is bigger than the first one. But it doesn't mean that every country will face the second wave, and it doesn't mean that the second waves will always be bigger than the first one. We have seen what happened in Vietnam, and we have seen what happened in New Zealand. Both of these countries is the countries that has controlled the epidemic very well. In Vietnam, in the first wave, they don't have any death, and when there is anything happen, they close down everything very rapidly. In New Zealand as well. If we look at these two countries, we can say that the second wave can come, but if we take appropriate measures, we can control epidemics. And in New Zealand, the second wave is not that large at all. In Vietnam, it takes them just a few weeks for them to control the epidemics. So it is not the nature of the disease that it needs that it have the second wave. It is our behaviors. It is what we do. It is not about the disease itself. If we take care of our behavior very well, we still has high caution, we still wearing masks, we still avoiding the crowded places. Then, if we have a new infection occur in the country, it is not necessary that we are going to have the second wave. And if we have the second wave, it is not necessary that we are going to have a bigger problem when compared to the first one. So all in all, it is what we do. It is what the Thai societies will do in order to limit the spread of the disease. It is not just about the disease itself.
So it means that we still have to keep our guard up. That's your recommendation. I can hear from your message.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Thanarak, for joining us on Thai PBS World tonight for our English edition. And we will talk to you more in Thai edition in Thanlok with Thai PBS World.
All right. So thank you for
Thank
talking
you.
to us and see you later.
Okay, thank you for watching. Bye for now.